Captain Jake Morrison stood at the window of his quarters aboard the diplomatic vessel Horizon, staring at Unity Station. The massive structure hung in the darkness of space like a silver wheel, slowly rotating against the backdrop of distant stars. He had been stationed here for 3 years, representing humanity at the Galactic Council, and he never grew tired of the view. But tonight, the beauty of the station brought him no comfort. The meeting had gone worse than anyone expected. Jake ran a hand through his dark hair and reached for the glass of water on his desk. His hands were steady, but his mind was racing. The Veclori Empire had just delivered an ultimatum that would change everything. A knock on the door pulled him from his thoughts. "Come in," Jake said. Ambassador Lisa Chen entered, her face drawn with worry. She was a small woman in her 50s, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had spent 30 years in diplomatic service, but Jake had never seen her look this shaken. "They're serious," Lisa said without preamble. She dropped into the chair across from his desk. "I thought Zalreth was posturing, but the council voted. 17 empires in favor, 3 abstained, and only the Corthan spoke against it." Jake set down his glass. 30 days. 30 days, Lisa confirmed. "We either surrender 70% of our colonies for redistribution, or the Veclori Empire will take them by force, and the Council will do nothing to stop them." The words hung in the air between them. Jake had known the Council barely tolerated humanity. The 5 great empires, the Veclori, the Nexian Collective, the Heraclean Domain, the Sithari Unity, and the Krell Dominion, had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. When humanity made first contact a century ago, they were seen as children stumbling into a game played by ancients. The Council had allowed humans to join, but with restrictions. Humanity could maintain no more than 200 warships. They could colonize only specific regions of space. They could not form military alliances with other species. Every rule was designed to keep humanity weak and dependent. And now the Veclori wanted to take even that away. "What did High Commander Zalreth say exactly?" Jake asked. Lisa pulled up a holographic display from her datapad. The image of Zalreth appeared, a tall figure with scaled skin the color of burnished copper and eyes like black glass. His voice filled the small room. "Humanity has been granted privileges beyond their station. Your species joined the Council merely 100 years ago, yet you claim territory equal to empires that have existed for 10,000 years. This imbalance must be corrected. The Veclori Empire, with the Council's blessing, will assume administrative control of the following human colonies." The list that followed was staggering. New Haven, Prosperity, Terra Nova, New Earth, and dozens more. Worlds where billions of humans lived, worked, and raised families. All to be handed over like property. "He's treating us like we're nothing," Jake said quietly. "To him, we are nothing," Lisa replied. She closed the hologram. "The Veclori military is the strongest in the galaxy. They have 3,000 warships, some the size of moons. Their oldest vessels have been in service for 6,000 years. We have 200 modern ships and no allies willing to stand with us." Jake stood and walked back to the window. Unity Station gleamed in the darkness. Somewhere on that station, Zalreth was probably celebrating his victory. The other empires would be discussing how to divide the spoils once humanity collapsed. They had no idea what was coming. "I need to send a message to Earth," Jake said. "Of course. What do you want me to tell the Council in the meantime?" "Stall. Tell them we need time to consult with our government. Ask for clarifications on the colony transitions. Anything to buy us a few more days." Lisa nodded and stood to leave, but she paused at the door. "Jake, what does Earth Command plan to do? We can't fight the Veclori. Even if we pulled every ship we have into one fleet, we'd be outnumbered 15-1. Jake looked at her, and for the first time that night, he smiled. "Just send the message, Lisa. Use the emergency channel. Code phrase, it's time to wake the old guard." Lisa's eyes widened. The old guard? Jake, that's not a real protocol. I've never heard of that code phrase. You weren't meant to, Jake said. Most people haven't. Just send it. Admiral Harper will know what it means. Lisa studied his face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. I hope you know what you're doing. After she left, Jake returned to the window. He thought about his father, who had served in the Human Defense Fleet 40 years ago. The old man had told him stories when Jake was young, stories that didn't quite match the official histories. Tales of ships that shouldn't exist and battles that were never recorded. Jake had dismissed them as the fantasies of a retired officer seeking to make his service sound more exciting. But when he joined the military himself and rose through the ranks, he began to notice gaps in the records. Entire decades where information was classified or simply missing. Questions that officers didn't answer, facilities that didn't appear on any map. And then, 3 years ago, Admiral Ben Harper had called him into a private meeting. The Admiral was a legend, a man who had served for 50 years and knew secrets that most people couldn't imagine. He had offered Jake the position as captain of the Horizon, the diplomatic vessel stationed at Unity Station. You'll be our eyes and ears at the council, Harper had said, and if things ever go wrong, if the other empires ever push too far, you'll be the one to send the signal. What signal? Jake had asked. Harper had looked at him with eyes that held the weight of decades. You'll know when the time comes, and when it does, send this message. It's time to wake the old guard. Can you remember that? Jake had remembered, and now, 3 years later, the time had come. Across the galaxy, on Earth, the message would be received within hours. Admiral Harper would open a vault that had been sealed for a century. He would access files that officially didn't exist, and he would begin the process of awakening something that had been sleeping in the darkness. Jake didn't know all the details. He didn't know what the old guard really was or where it had been hidden. But he knew enough to understand that humanity had been playing a very long game. The Veclori Empire thought they were dealing with a young species, barely a century into space travel, with a tiny military and no significant technology. They had no idea that humanity's first contact 100 years ago had been anything but first. They didn't know about the lost centuries, the years between 2200 and 2400 where Earth's historical records became strangely sparse and contradictory. They didn't know that humanity had been to the stars long before they ever met the Galactic Council. And they had no idea what humanity had built in the darkness. Jake watched a Veclori cruiser glide past Unity Station, its running lights gleaming. In 30 days, High Commander Zalreth would send his fleet to New Haven. He would expect an easy victory. He would expect humanity to surrender or be crushed. He would be wrong. Jake touched the communication panel on his desk and began recording his official response to the council. His voice was calm and diplomatic, exactly what they expected from a human captain. But in his mind, he was counting down the days. Kyle Patterson wiped the sweat from his forehead and stared at the readings on his scanner. They made no sense. He was 2 miles beneath the ice on Europa, Jupiter's frozen moon, and his equipment was telling him there was a hollow space ahead. A very large, hollow space. Hey, Danny, come look at this, Kyle called to his partner. Danny Ford shuffled over, his boots crunching on the ice. The mining crew had been drilling for water deposits, routine work that paid well but was incredibly boring. Finding something unexpected was both exciting and concerning. That can't be right, Danny said, looking at the scanner. That cavity is huge, like the size of a city huge. Kyle checked the readings again. The scanner wasn't malfunctioning. There was definitely something down there, and it had been hidden under the ice for a very long time. We need to report this, Kyle said. Within 6 hours, a science team arrived from the Europa Research Station. Dr. Emma Rodriguez led the group, a woman in her 40s with keen eyes and an excitement for mysteries. She had spent 20 years studying ancient ruins across human space, but she had never expected to find anything on Europa. "This moon was surveyed 100 times," Emma said, as they descended into the drilling shaft. "How did nobody find this before?" "Maybe they did, and classified it," Kyle suggested. Emma didn't respond, but the look on her face suggested she was thinking the same thing. When they reached the cavity, Emma's breath caught in her throat. The space was enormous, easily 5 miles across, and it wasn't natural. The walls were smooth, carved by tools or machines. Lights flickered on as they entered, ancient systems waking after centuries of sleep. And in the center of the massive chamber, sitting in rows like sleeping giants, were ships. Not just any ships. These vessels were unlike anything in the modern human fleet. They were massive, each one at least 3 miles long, with hulls that seemed to absorb light. Strange symbols covered their surfaces, markings that Emma recognized from her studies of ancient Earth languages. "That's Sanskrit," she whispered, pointing at one ship, "and that's ancient Greek, and that looks like Old Norse." "What are these things?" Kyle asked. Emma approached the nearest ship, her hand trembling as she touched the hull. The metal was cold and impossibly smooth. As soon as her skin made contact, lights began to glow along the ship's surface. A doorway opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. "I think we just woke something up," Danny said nervously. Emma stepped inside and the others followed. The interior was pristine, as if the ship had been built yesterday rather than centuries ago. Corridors stretched into the distance, and the air was breathable. Emergency lights activated, guiding them toward the bridge. When they reached the command center, a holographic display appeared in the air before them. A voice spoke, calm and measured in perfect English. "Identity confirmed. Human DNA detected. Welcome aboard the Titan-class vessel Eternal Vigilance. Awaiting activation codes." Emma stared at the hologram. "Who built you?" "This vessel was constructed in the year 2287 at the hidden shipyard Europa 7 under Project Sleeper protocols. Further information requires proper authorization." Kyle pulled out his communicator. "We need to contact Earth Command, right now." Across the solar system, on Mars, Commander Alex Stone was having a similar experience. His team had been exploring the cavern systems beneath Olympus Mons when they discovered a sealed door. The door was massive, hundreds of feet tall, and marked with warnings in multiple languages. "Do not open unless humanity faces extinction. By order of Admiral Chen. Year 23 and 12. Alex had stared at those words for a long time before deciding to breach the seal. His superiors had given him permission after much debate. The situation with the Veclori Empire was bad enough to justify breaking a 300-year-old seal. Behind the door, they found a fleet. 20 ships sat in perfect formation, each one identical to the others. They were smaller than the ones on Europa, only a mile long, but they radiated power. As soon as Alex's team entered the chamber, the ships powered up. "This is the Guardian-class vessel Morning Star," a voice announced. "Authorization required for full activation. Emergency protocols engaged due to extended dormancy period." Alex walked between the ships, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. These vessels had been here for over 500 years, hidden beneath Mars, waiting. On Earth, in a building that didn't appear on any map, Admiral Ben Harper descended into a vault that only a handful of people knew existed. The message from Jake Morrison had arrived 2 hours ago, and Harper had immediately begun the process. The vault was deep underground, protected by layers of security that would stop anyone without the proper codes. Harper's hand was scanned, his retina checked, and his DNA verified. Finally, the last door opened. Inside was a simple room with a single terminal. Harper sat down and entered the activation sequence, his fingers moving across the keyboard with practiced precision. The screen came to life, displaying a map of human space. Red dots appeared, scattered across dozens of star systems. Each dot represented a hidden facility, a place where ships had been sleeping for centuries. Europa, Mars, Enceladus, Titan, Pluto, Ceres, and dozens more locations in deep space, on distant moons and asteroids, in places no one would think to look. 3,047 ships in total. The entire Titan fleet, built during the lost centuries and hidden away when humanity decided to restart their civilization. Harper activated the communication system and sent out the signal. It was a simple message, broadcast on a frequency that hadn't been used in 100 years. Project Sleeper is now active. All vessels begin awakening sequence. Authorization Harper Alpha 79. This is not a drill. Across human space, in 27 different locations, the ships began to wake. On Europa, Emma watched as the Eternal Vigilance powered up completely. The holographic display showed system after system coming online. Quantum fold drives, reality anchor weapons, nanoswarm repair systems, and technologies that Emma didn't recognize. "What were you built to fight?" she asked the ship's AI. The hologram shifted, showing images of something that made Emma's blood run cold. Massive creatures, if they could be called creatures, that moved through space like sharks through water. They consumed everything in their path, entire worlds stripped bare. "The Devourers," the AI said, "an extragalactic threat that humanity encountered in the year 2201. This vessel and the entire Titan fleet were constructed to push them back beyond the galactic rim. Mission was successful in the year 2389. All Devourers were contained behind quantum barriers. Fleet was placed in storage to await possible future conflict." Emma sat down heavily. "You're telling me humanity fought a war against alien monsters for almost 200 years, and nobody knows about it?" Information was classified under Protocol Restart. Humanity chose to rebuild without the trauma of the war. Only essential command personnel retained knowledge of Project Sleeper. On Mars, Alex was learning the same information from the Morning Star's AI. He stood on the bridge of the Guardian-class ship, looking out at the cavern that had hidden it for so long. "How many people died in this war?" Alex asked. "Casualties are estimated at 12 billion humans across all colonies on Earth. 73 colonies were completely destroyed. Earth suffered direct attacks that killed 2 billion people." Alex felt sick. 12 billion dead. That was more than the entire current human population. And it had all been erased from history, buried under layers of classified files and false records. His communicator buzzed. It was a message from Earth Command, from Admiral Harper himself. "Commander Stone, you are hereby given command of Battle Group 7, consisting of 12 Titan-class vessels currently stationed at Enceladus. Proceed to that location immediately and begin full activation sequence. Captain Jake Morrison will arrive within 48 hours to assume overall command. The Veclori Empire has issued an ultimatum. We have 28 days until they attack New Haven Colony. It's time to remind the galaxy who we really are." Alex read the message twice, then looked at the Guardian-class ships surrounding him. 28 days. The Veclori had no idea what they had awakened. On Earth, Harper watched as confirmation signals came in from every hidden site. The Titan fleet was waking up. Ships that had slept for a century were powering their drives, checking their weapons, and preparing for war. He thought about the choice humanity had made all those years ago. After defeating the Devourers, they could have revealed their strength to the galaxy. They could have joined the Galactic Council as conquerors, feared and respected. Instead, they chose peace. They hid the Titans, erased the war from history, and approached the Council as explorers seeking friendship. For 100 years, they had played the role of the weak newcomer, accepting restrictions and insults, all in the hope that they would never need to fight again. But the Veclori Empire had pushed too far. High Commander Zalreth thought humanity was defenseless. He thought their small fleet of 200 modern ships was all they had. He was about to learn the truth. Harper opened a communication channel to Jake Morrison at Unity Station. The captain's face appeared on the screen. "The old guard is awake," Harper said simply. "And they're ready." Jake nodded. "How long until Battle Group 7 is operational?" 72 hours for full combat readiness, but they can move now if needed. "Good. The Veclori will move faster than their 30-day timeline suggests. Zalreth is arrogant. He'll want to strike quickly to demonstrate power." Harper agreed. "I'm sending you to take command of the Phoenix Legacy. It's the lead ship of Battle Group 7, best vessel in the entire Titan fleet." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. He was about to command a ship that fought monsters from beyond the galaxy, a ship that humanity had hidden for 100 years. "Understood, Admiral. I'll be ready." "Jake," Harper said quietly, "the galaxy is about to learn who we really are. Make sure we give them something to remember." The screen went dark and Jake stood alone in his quarters, watching Unity Station through the window. In a few days, everything would change. The old guard was awake. High Commander Zalreth stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, and watched the stars streak past. His fleet of 200 warships moved through space toward the human colony of New Haven, and he felt nothing but contempt for the species that would soon learn their place. 30 days had been the timeline given to humanity. But Zalreth had no intention of waiting that long. Humans were weak, and weak species needed to be taught harsh lessons quickly. A sudden strike would show the galaxy that the Veclori Empire did not make empty threats. "How long until we reach New Haven?" Zalreth asked his tactical officer. 16 hours, Commander." "Good. Prepare all weapons. When we arrive, I want the orbital defenses eliminated immediately. Then we land troops and secure the major cities. The humans will surrender before the day is done." His officers moved to carry out the orders. Zalreth settled into his command chair, satisfied. The humans had 200 ships scattered across their entire territory. Even if they somehow learned of this attack and sent their entire fleet to defend New Haven, they would arrive too late. And the Veclori Crimson Fleet, his personal armada, would crush them anyway. On New Haven, Governor Kate Sullivan was having breakfast with her family when the emergency alert came through. She dropped her coffee cup, and it shattered on the floor as she grabbed her communicator. "This is Sullivan. Report." "Governor, long-range sensors have detected a massive fleet entering our system. 200 contacts, all military vessels. They're Veclori. They'll be here in 14 hours. Kate's heart sank. She had known this was coming eventually, but she had hoped for more time. The diplomats were supposed to still be negotiating. Earth Command was supposed to send reinforcements. "Activate the emergency protocols," Kate ordered. "Begin civilian evacuation to the underground shelters. Get everyone who can fight to the militia staging areas. And send a distress signal to Earth Command immediately." New Haven was home to 8 million people. The colony was prosperous, with farms that fed a dozen other worlds and factories that produced advanced electronics. It was exactly the kind of prize that the Veclori wanted. The orbital defenses were designed to handle pirates and small raiders. 12 automated platforms with plasma cannons and missile batteries. Against 200 Veclori warships, they would last minutes. Kate watched through her office window as the evacuation began. People flooding into the streets heading for the shelter entrances. Children crying, parents trying to stay calm. The fear was palpable. She opened a secure channel to Earth Command, praying someone would answer. Admiral Harper's face appeared on the screen immediately. "Governor Sullivan, we received your distress signal. Admiral, the Veclori fleet will be here in less than 14 hours. We can't hold against that kind of force. Our defenses are minimal." Harper's expression was calm, almost unnaturally so. "Governor, help is already on the way. Battle Group 7 is moving to your location now. They'll arrive before the Veclori do." Kate felt a flicker of hope. "Battle Group 7? I'm not familiar with that designation. How many ships?" 12 vessels, Harper said. Kate's hope died. 12 ships against 200? Admiral, that's not enough. Trust me, Governor, just hold on for a few more hours. And when Battle Group 7 arrives, make sure your people stay in the shelters no matter what happens in orbit. The connection ended before Kate could ask more questions. She stared at the blank screen, feeling helpless. 12 ships. Even if they were the best vessels in the human fleet, it wouldn't be enough. She returned to coordinating the evacuation, preparing for the worst. 14 light-years away, near the frozen moon Enceladus, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Phoenix Legacy and tried to comprehend the scale of the ship around him. The bridge alone was larger than a football field. Crew stations were arranged in concentric circles, each one monitoring different systems. Holographic displays floated in the air, showing tactical data, system status, and navigation information. And at the center of it all was the captain's chair, an elegant piece of engineering that seemed almost too simple for such an advanced vessel. Jake sat down and immediately felt the ship respond to his presence. Neural interfaces activated, connecting him to the Phoenix Legacy in ways that no modern ship could match. He could feel the ship's systems like extensions of his own body. "Welcome, Captain Morrison," said a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The ship's AI, Dawn, spoke with a tone that was neither male nor female, but somehow felt ancient and wise. "Thank you, Dawn. Status report. All systems operational. Quantum fold drive charged and ready. Weapon systems armed. Nanoswarm repair systems at full capacity. Crew complement at 80%. All 11 other vessels in Battle Group 7 report ready for combat." Jake looked at the tactical display. The other 11 Titan-class ships were arrayed around the Phoenix Legacy in a defensive formation. Each ship was massive, bristling with weapons that humanity had developed during the war against the Devourers. "Dawn, show me what we're up against." The display shifted to show New Haven and the approaching Veclori fleet. 200 warships, led by the Eternal Dominion, a massive dreadnought that was the pride of the Veclori Empire. "Analysis?" Jake asked. "Veclori vessels are equipped with plasma cannons, fusion missiles, and conventional energy shields. Their largest ships measure approximately 2 miles in length. Estimated total firepower is sufficient to destroy a medium-sized moon. However, their technology is approximately 4 generations behind Titan-class capabilities. They outnumber us nearly 20-1. Correct. However, Battle Group 7 possesses several significant advantages. Our quantum fold drives allow instantaneous travel across vast distances. Our reality anchor weapons manipulate space-time itself. Our hull composition renders conventional energy weapons largely ineffective. And our nano-swarm systems can disassemble enemy vessels at the molecular level. Jake took a deep breath. He had commanded modern warships for 15 years, but this was something entirely different. The Phoenix Legacy was a weapon built to fight monsters from beyond the galaxy. Using it against the Veclori fleet felt like bringing a cannon to a knife fight. But the Veclori had chosen this fight. They had threatened human colonies, dismissed humanity as weak, and refused all diplomatic solutions. They needed to understand the truth. "Dawn, how long until we can reach New Haven?" 4 hours and 12 minutes using quantum fold drive. "Set course. We're going to arrive before the Veclori do." The Phoenix Legacy and the other 11 ships of Battle Group 7 disappeared from normal space with barely a ripple. They moved through quantum fold space, a dimension where distance had no meaning and time flowed differently. On the Eternal Dominion, Zalrith was reviewing the battle plan when his sensor officer suddenly called out, "Commander, we're detecting unusual energy readings ahead. Very unusual." Zalrith frowned. "Explain." "There are ships emerging from quantum-fold space directly above New Haven. Large ships. Very large. I've never seen anything like them." "How many?" 12 contacts. They just appeared out of nowhere. Commander, these ships are massive. The largest one is registering at over 3 miles long." Zalrith stood, his scales rippling with irritation. "The humans have no quantum-fold technology. Your sensors are malfunctioning." "Commander, I'm reading them on multiple systems. They're real. And they're positioning themselves between us and New Haven." Zalrith pulled up the tactical display and felt his confidence waver for the first time. The ships were unlike anything in the database. They didn't match any known human design. In fact, they didn't match any known design at all. "Send a communication to the lead vessel. Demand identification." A moment later, a human face appeared on the screen. A man in his 30s with dark hair and calm eyes. He wore a uniform that Zalrith didn't recognize. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Human Defense Initiative vessel Phoenix Legacy. You are approaching human territory with hostile intent. Power down your weapons and withdraw immediately, or we will be forced to engage." Zalrith laughed. "Captain Morrison, you command 12 ships against my fleet of 200. Do you really expect me to retreat?" Jake's expression didn't change. "Hi, Commander Zalrith, I'm going to give you one opportunity to avoid unnecessary casualties. Your fleet is outmatched. Withdraw now, and no one has to die today." "Outmatched?" Zalrith's voice rose with anger. "You have 12 ships. We have 200 warships that have conquered 1,000 worlds. I will give you one chance, human. Surrender your vessels to me, and I will allow you to escape in life pods. Refuse, and I will destroy you all." Jake sighed. "I tried, Dawn. Record the communication log for the official report." "Recorded, Captain. All ships, move to combat formation Beta. Prepare to engage on my mark. Rules of engagement. Disable enemy vessels. Minimize casualties where possible. We're here to send a message, not to start a genocide." On the Eternal Dominion, Zalrith cut the communication and turned to his weapons officer. "All ships, target those 12 vessels. Fire everything we have. I want them turned to dust." The Veclori Crimson Fleet opened fire. 200 warships unleashed their weapons simultaneously. Plasma bolts bright enough to blind, fusion missiles trailing fire, and energy beams that could cut through mountains all converged on the Phoenix Legacy. On New Haven, Governor Kate Sullivan watched from the command center as the battle began. The displays showed the incoming fire, an impossible amount of destructive force, all focused on the 12 mysterious ships that had appeared to defend the colony. "Those ships are going to be obliterated," her tactical officer whispered. But they weren't. The weapons fire reached the Phoenix Legacy and simply disappeared. The hull absorbed the plasma bolts like water drops hitting the ocean. The missiles exploded harmlessly against shields that didn't even flicker. The energy beams bent around the ship as if reality itself was protecting it. Kate's jaw dropped. "What are those ships made of?" On the bridge of the Phoenix Legacy, Jake sat calmly in his chair, barely feeling the impacts. "Dawn, return fire. Reality anchor weapons, minimal power. Let's show them what we can do." Acknowledged. The Phoenix Legacy's main weapons activated. They didn't look like conventional weapons. Instead, they created distortions in space itself, visible as shimmering points of warped light. 5 Veclori warships suddenly stopped moving. They hung in space, completely frozen, as if time had stopped for them alone. Their crews were unharmed, still breathing, still thinking, but unable to move or act. They were trapped in temporal stasis. 3 more Veclory ships simply vanished and reappeared 50,000 kilometers away in random directions, teleported by weapons that manipulated the fabric of space-time. The rest of the Veclory fleet stopped firing, confusion spreading through their ranks. Zalreth stared at the tactical display in disbelief. What just happened? What are those weapons? His science officer's voice shook. Commander, those ships are using technology I've never seen before. They're manipulating space-time itself. This is beyond anything in our database. The other 11 ships of Battle Group 7 moved into position, forming a sphere around the entire Veclory fleet. They didn't fire again, but the threat was clear. Jake opened the communication channel once more. Hi, Commander Zalreth. This is your final warning. Stand down. Zalreth's pride burned hotter than any weapon his fleet possessed. He stared at the tactical display, at the 12 human ships that had just humiliated his fleet, and felt something he hadn't experienced in decades, fear. But fear quickly transformed into rage. All ships, focus fire on that lead vessel, Zalreth commanded. Pour everything we have into one target. Their shields must have limits. The Veclory fleet regrouped and unleashed a second barrage, concentrating all their firepower on the Phoenix Legacy. The amount of energy being thrown at the single ship was enough to vaporize a planet. Jake watched the tactical display as the weapons fire converged on his position. Around him, the bridge crew worked at their stations with practiced efficiency. They were veterans. Many of them pulled from deep space assignments where they had been monitoring the quantum barriers that kept the Devourers contained. Dawn. Status, Jake asked calmly. Hull integrity at 100%. Shields not required. Enemy weapons continue to be ineffective against Titan-class armor. Recommend we escalate our response to demonstrate the futility of continued resistance. Jake nodded. Agreed. Target their weapons systems. Disable their ability to fight without destroying the ships themselves. The Phoenix Legacy moved forward, accelerating to speeds that should have been impossible for something so massive. The ship wove through the incoming fire like a dancer, each movement graceful despite its enormous size. Then it released the nanoswarm. From the hull of the Phoenix Legacy, billions of microscopic machines poured out like a silver mist. They spread across space faster than any missile, guided by the ship's AI to their targets. When they reached the first Veclory warship, they went to work. The Veclory crew watched in horror as their weapons systems simply came apart. Plasma cannons dissolved into their component molecules. Missile tubes separated and drifted away. Energy conduits unraveled like thread. Within 30 seconds, the warship was completely disarmed, its hull intact, but its weapons gone. The nanoswarm moved to the next ship, then the next. In 2 minutes, 15 Veclory warships were rendered harmless, floating in space with confused crews who couldn't understand what had just happened. Zalreth slammed his fist against the command console. What is that? What are they using? Some kind of molecular disassembler, his science officer reported, his voice shaking. Commander, we have no defense against this. Our shields don't stop it. Our armor doesn't stop it. They're taking apart our ships at the atomic level. Then we ram them, Zalreth said. If weapons don't work, we use our ships as weapons. Eternal Dominion. Set collision course with that lead vessel. Maximum speed. His officers stared at him in shock. Commander, that's suicide, his first officer protested. It's necessary, Zalreth said coldly. Our honor demands it. If we cannot defeat them with weapons, we will show them the courage of Veclory warriors. Set the course. The Eternal Dominion's engines flared to full power. The massive dreadnought, pride of the Veclory Empire, accelerated directly toward the Phoenix Legacy. On the Phoenix Legacy's bridge, Dawn spoke urgently. Captain, the enemy flagship is on a collision course. Impact in 40 seconds. Jake stood from his chair, his expression hardening. They're going to kill their own crew for pride. Dawn, can you separate the crew compartments from the rest of the ship? Yes. Captain, Nanoswarm can isolate life support sections and leave them intact. Do it, now! The silver mist flowed out again, faster this time. It enveloped the Eternal Dominion as the dreadnought bore down on the Phoenix Legacy. And then, in a display that defied belief, the Veclori flagship came apart. The hull separated into sections, each cut precisely along structural weak points. The crew compartments, intact and pressurized, were gently pushed away from the collision course by controlled bursts from the nanoswarm. The rest of the ship, the engines, weapons, and superstructure, dissolved into component parts that scattered harmlessly into space. In less than 10 seconds, the Eternal Dominion ceased to exist as a warship. Its crew floated in what looked like massive lifeboats, completely unharmed but thoroughly defeated. Zalrith sat in his command chair, now part of a floating compartment with no engines, no weapons, and no way to fight. Around him, his bridge crew stared in stunned silence at the Phoenix Legacy, which hung in space exactly where it had been, completely undamaged. The rest of the Veclori fleet stopped moving. No more orders came from the flagship. The other commanders didn't know what to do against an enemy that could literally disassemble their ships while leaving the crews alive. Jake opened a channel to all Veclori vessels. His voice was calm but carried the weight of absolute authority. This battle is over. All Veclori ships will power down immediately and prepare to be towed out of New Haven system. Your crews will be unharmed and return to your territory within 1 week. Your ships will be returned after diplomatic talks conclude between our governments. This is not open to negotiation. For a long moment, there was silence. Then, one by one, the Veclori warships shut down their engines and weapons. They had no choice. They had seen what the human ships could do. On New Haven, Governor Kate Sullivan watched the battle end and felt her legs go weak with relief. She sat down heavily in her chair, barely able to process what she had just witnessed. Those 12 ships just defeated 200 Veclori warships in less than 6 minutes, her tactical officer said, his voice filled with awe. And they didn't destroy a single enemy vessel. They didn't kill anyone. They just took them apart. Kate activated her communicator. This is Governor Sullivan to Captain Morrison. On behalf of 8 million people on New Haven, thank you. You saved us all. Jake's face appeared on the screen, and Kate was struck by how young he looked. This man commanded a weapon that could reshape battles, yet he seemed almost uncomfortable with the power at his disposal. Governor Sullivan, secure your colony. We'll maintain orbit until Earth Command sends additional support. The threat has been neutralized. Captain, what are those ships? I've never seen anything like them. Jake hesitated, then said simply, They're old, Governor. Very old. And they're the reason humanity survived long enough to join the Galactic Council. Before Kate could ask more questions, the communication ended. Across the galaxy, at Unity Station, the entire Galactic Council watched recordings of the battle. The engagement had been monitored by automated observation posts, standard practice for any military action in Council space. The Council chamber was silent. Representatives from a dozen species sat in their designated areas, staring at the displays that showed the Phoenix Legacy and its sister ships casually dismantling the Veclori fleet. Ambassador Lisa Chen stood at the human podium, and for the first time since joining the Council, she felt no need to defend humanity's position. The battle spoke for itself. The Veclori Empire issued an ultimatum and then attacked one of our colonies before the deadline, Lisa said. We responded with the minimum force necessary to protect our people. As you can see, we could have destroyed the entire Veclori fleet. We chose not to. Every Veclori crew member survived. The Nexian representative, a being that looked like living crystal, spoke first. What are those vessels, Ambassador? They do not match any human design in our records. They are Titan-class warships, Lisa replied. built by humanity during a period of our history that we had previously kept classified. We have 3,000 of them. The number caused an uproar. 3,000 ships that could each defeat dozens of conventional warships. It meant humanity had the most powerful fleet in the galaxy, and they had been hiding it for a century. The Krell Dominion's ambassador, a massive creature with 6 arms, leaned forward. "You have possessed this fleet for your entire time in the Council, yet you said nothing. You accepted restrictions on your military, allowed other species to treat you as inferior, all while hiding this level of power." Lisa met the Krell's gaze steadily. "Yes, we did, because we hoped we would never need to use them again. The Titans were built for a specific threat, one that humanity faced alone. When that threat was contained, we chose peace over dominance. We chose to join the Council as equals, not conquerors. And yet, you still built weapons capable of destroying fleets," the Sithari representative said, her voice sharp with accusation. "We built weapons capable of saving our species from extinction," Lisa corrected. "And today, we used them to save 8 million human lives while preserving the lives of every Veclori crew member in that fleet. We are not your enemies. We never were." The Korthan ambassador, the one species that had spoken against the ultimatum, stood from his seat. The Korthan were an old race, peaceful but respected. The humans have demonstrated both power and restraint. They could have annihilated the Veclori fleet. They chose mercy. That speaks more of their character than the weapons themselves. But not everyone agreed. The Heraklion domain's representative, a reptilian being with cold eyes, spoke with venom in his voice. "This changes everything. Humanity has deceived us all. They are not the newcomers we believed them to be. They are a threat, hiding behind a mask of friendship." Admiral Harper, watching the Council proceedings from Earth, sent a message to Lisa. "It's time to tell them the rest. They need to understand why we built the Titans." Lisa nodded, though Harper couldn't see her. She took a breath and activated a holographic display that showed images from the war against the Devourers. Images of massive creatures tearing through human ships, of colonies being consumed, of Earth itself under attack. 300 years ago, humanity encountered something from beyond this galaxy, Lisa began. "We called them the Devourers. They were not a species seeking territory or resources. They were a force of nature, consuming everything in their path. They killed 12 billion humans in a war that lasted nearly 200 years. The council chamber went silent again, but this time the silence was different. It was the silence of beings confronting something they had never imagined. "We built the Titans to fight them," Lisa continued. "We developed technology that could manipulate space-time because conventional weapons were useless. We won, barely, and pushed the Devourers back beyond the galactic rim. Then we did something that most species would consider insane. We hid our weapons, erased most records of the war, and chose to start over." "Why?" the Nexian representative asked. "Why hide such a victory?" "Because we were tired of war," Lisa said simply. "Because we had lost billions, and we wanted our children to grow up without fear. Because we hoped that by joining the Council, by becoming part of the galactic community, we would never have to fight like that again." She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of representatives from dozens of worlds. The Galactic Council chamber remained silent for several long moments after Lisa's revelation. Representatives from dozens of species processed the information, their various forms of body language showing shock, fear, and in some cases, anger. Finally, the ancient Veclori Prime Council member, Elder Korath, spoke. He was much older than Zalreth, a veteran of 1,000 campaigns, and his voice carried the weight of age. "Ambassador Chen, you claim humanity fought a 200-year war against an extragalactic threat, yet there are no records of this. The Council's deep space monitoring systems detected no such conflict. Lisa nodded to Dr. Emma Rodriguez, who had been brought from Europa specifically for this moment. Emma stepped forward, carrying a data core. Elder Korath, members of the Council, I am Dr. Emma Rodriguez, a xenoarchaeologist. I have spent the past 3 days examining one of the Titan-class vessels and its historical records. What I'm about to show you is the complete archive of the war, unedited and verified. Emma activated the holographic system, and the council chamber was flooded with images. Battle records, casualty reports, scientific data, and most importantly, actual footage of the Devourers. The creatures were nightmares made real. They moved through space without ships, their bodies somehow capable of surviving the void. They were massive, some of them larger than moons, with forms that seemed to shift and change, as if reality itself couldn't quite hold them in one shape. When they reached a planet, they didn't conquer it. They consumed it, breaking it down to raw energy that they absorbed. The footage showed human ships fighting desperately, conventional weapons doing almost nothing. Then it showed the first Titan vessels engaging, using reality anchor weapons that actually hurt the creatures. The war played out in fast forward, 2 centuries compressed into minutes. Billions dying, worlds burning, and humanity refusing to give up. The final images showed the Devourers being driven back, forced beyond the galactic rim by a massive coordinated assault from the entire Titan fleet. Then came the construction of the quantum barriers, massive fields that sealed the edge of the galaxy and kept the Devourers contained. When the display ended, the council chamber was filled with a different kind of silence. This was not skepticism or anger. This was horror at what humanity had faced, and respect for the fact that they had survived. The Corthan ambassador spoke quietly. You fought this war alone. You never called for help. We didn't know you existed, Lisa replied. Our faster-than-light technology was different then, more experimental. We explored in directions where we encountered no other intelligent life. By the time we met you, the war was over, and we had made our choice. Elder Korath stood, his old bones creaking. I must speak with High Commander Zalreth. The Veclori Empire has made a grave error. Within hours, Zalreth was brought before the council. He stood in the center of the chamber, no longer the proud commander, but a warrior who had been thoroughly defeated. His scales had lost some of their luster, and his eyes showed the weight of shame. High Commander, Elder Korath said, you attacked a human colony believing them to be weak. You now know the truth. What do you have to say? Zalreth looked at Lisa, then at the holographic display that still showed frozen images of the Devourers. When he spoke, his voice was different, humbled. I was a fool. The Veclori Empire was a fool. We saw humans accept restrictions on their military and believed it was because they were weak. We did not consider that it might be because they were strong enough to choose peace. He approached Lisa and did something that shocked everyone in the chamber. He knelt. In Veclori culture, this was a gesture reserved for acknowledging a superior, something that warriors did only before those they recognized as greater than themselves. Ambassador Chen, on behalf of the Veclori Empire, I apologize. We were wrong. We will withdraw all demands for your colonies. And we will pay reparations for the attack on New Haven. Lisa looked down at the kneeling commander. Part of her wanted to feel satisfaction, to enjoy this moment of vindication. But mostly, she just felt tired. Stand up, Commander. We don't want enemies. We never did. Zalreth stood, and there was a new expression on his face. Respect. Those 12 ships defeated my fleet without killing anyone. That required more skill than simply destroying us would have. You are true warriors? The Raklian representative interrupted. This does not address the fundamental issue. Humanity has been deceiving us for a century. They possess a fleet that dwarfs any military force in the galaxy. How can we trust them? Admiral Harper, who had been watching the proceedings via holographic link, stepped forward in the display. "You can trust us because we had this power for 100 years and never used it until we were attacked. We could have revealed the Titans when we first joined the Council and demanded a seat among the great powers. We didn't. We could have refused the military restrictions and shown our strength. We didn't. We chose to be part of the community rather than stand above it." The Nexian representative's crystalline form flickered with thought. "But now that we know the truth, everything changes. You possess 3,000 Titan-class vessels. Each one can defeat dozens of our warships. You are, by any measure, the most powerful military force in the galaxy." "On paper, yes," Harper agreed. "But power is meaningless if you don't use it for conquest. We didn't build the Titans to rule the galaxy. We built them to survive. And now that the galaxy knows they exist, we want to use them for something better." "What do you propose?" the Corthan ambassador asked. Harper looked around the virtual council chamber. "The Devourers are contained, but they are not gone. The quantum barriers that hold them back require constant monitoring and maintenance. For 100 years, humanity has been doing that alone, watching the edge of the galaxy while pretending to be weak newcomers. We didn't want to alarm you with the knowledge that something that dangerous was out there." He paused, letting that sink in. "But the barriers are not permanent. They weaken over time. And our deep space monitoring stations have detected increased activity beyond the rim in the past decade. The Devourers are testing the barriers, looking for weak points. Eventually, they will find a way through." The council chamber erupted in noise. Fear spread like wildfire as representatives realized what Harper was saying. The threat that humanity had faced was still out there, waiting. Harper raised his hand, and the chamber gradually quieted. "We can strengthen the barriers, but it requires resources and technology from across the galaxy. We propose something new. Not a military alliance where humans lead and others follow, but a true partnership. Share your knowledge, your resources, and your capabilities. In return, we'll share ours. The Titan fleet's technology, our understanding of quantum mechanics, everything we learned fighting the Devourers." The Sithari representative, who had been quiet until now, spoke thoughtfully. "You want to create a unified defense force? One that includes all Council species?" "Exactly," Harper confirmed. "The Devourers are everyone's problem, even if most of you didn't know they existed until today. And there might be other threats out there, things we haven't encountered yet. Better to face them together than divided." Elder Korath nodded slowly. "This is wisdom. The old Veclori saying goes, 'The pack survives where the lone hunter falls.' Humanity fought alone once. They should not have to do so again." The council debated for hours. Some representatives were enthusiastic, seeing the opportunity to access technology far beyond their own. Others were cautious, worried about the implications of such an alliance. The Heraklian representative remained opposed, arguing that humanity couldn't be trusted. But eventually a vote was called. The measure passed with 73% support. The Galactic Council would establish a unified defense initiative combining the resources and knowledge of all member species. Humanity would contribute the Titan fleet and their advanced technology. Other species would contribute their own strengths. The restrictions on human military expansion were lifted. Humanity was offered a permanent seat among the great powers. But Admiral Harper declined the latter offer. "We don't need special status," he said. "We need partners, equals. That's all we ever wanted." 3 months later, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Phoenix Legacy, which had become the flagship of the new Galactic Defense Initiative. Around him worked a crew that included not just humans, but Corthan engineers, Nexian scientists, and even a few Veclori tactical officers who had asked to transfer. "Captain," Dawn spoke, "we are approaching the first quantum barrier maintenance station. All systems are ready." Jake looked at the view screen, which showed the edge of the galaxy. Beyond it, in the darkness between galaxies, the Devourers waited. But they were not just humanity's burden anymore. A fleet of ships from a dozen species worked together, strengthening the barriers, improving the monitoring systems, and preparing for the day when the Devourers might return. It was the largest cooperative effort in galactic history. Lisa Chen, now the official human representative to the Defense Initiative, joined Jake on the bridge. "Strange how things worked out," she said. "We tried to hide our strength to avoid frightening everyone, and ended up revealing it to save ourselves." "Do you think it was the right choice?" Jake asked. "Hiding the Titans for so long?" Lisa considered the question. "I think we did what we thought was best at the time. Our people were traumatized. We needed to heal. But maybe we waited too long. If we had been honest from the beginning, we could have been building these defenses for the past century. Or the other species might have feared us and attacked before they understood," Jake countered. "There's no way to know." On Earth, in the deep vault beneath Terra Command, Admiral Harper watched as the last of the Titan fleet was brought out of storage. The ships were being distributed across the galaxy, assigned to joint task forces with crews from multiple species. The age of humanity hiding in the shadows was over. Dr. Emma Rodriguez had taken charge of a massive archaeological project, working with Veclori and Nexian scientists to fully understand the technology in the Titans. What they were discovering was remarkable. The quantum-fold drives could be adapted for peaceful uses, making travel across the galaxy nearly instantaneous. The nanoswarm technology could revolutionize manufacturing and construction. Even the reality anchor weapons had non-military applications in physics research. On New Haven, Governor Kate Sullivan oversaw the rebuilding of the orbital defenses, but this time, she wasn't alone. Corthan engineers helped design the new platforms, incorporating technology from multiple species. The colony had become a symbol of the new cooperation, the place where humanity first revealed its true strength to protect not just themselves, but the future they wanted to build with others. In the depths of space, beyond the galactic rim, the Devourers pressed against the quantum barriers. They had waited for centuries, patient and relentless. They sensed the activity on the other side of the barriers, the increase in energy as the galaxy's species worked together to strengthen the defenses. For now, the barriers held. But the Devourers were ancient and persistent. They had consumed countless galaxies before, and they would consume this one too. Eventually. They just had to wait. But this time, when they came, they would not face a single species fighting alone. They would face a galaxy united. Jake stood at the view screen, watching the stars. Behind him, Dawn's voice spoke quietly. "Captain, deep space sensors are detecting increased activity beyond the barriers. The Devourers are becoming more active." "How long until they break through?" Jake asked. "Unknown. Current projections suggest anywhere from 10 years to a century. But they will come eventually." Jake nodded. "Then we have work to do. Humanity hid for 100 years trying to forget the war. But you can't build a future by hiding from the past. You build it by learning from what you survived and preparing for what comes next." He turned away from the view screen and looked at his bridge crew. Humans, Veclori, Corthan, and Nexian, all working together. A year ago, this would have been impossible. But the galaxy had learned an important lesson. The greatest strength was not in the size of your fleet or the power of your weapons. It was in choosing when to fight and when to extend your hand in friendship. Humanity had spent a century pretending to be weak to avoid conflict. Now they were showing their strength to build cooperation. And when the Devourers finally came, they would learn what it meant to face not one species standing alone, but an entire galaxy standing together. Jake returned to his chair, connected to the ship's neural interface, and gave the order. "All ships, maintain position along the barrier line. Continue enhancement protocols. And someone send a message to Earth. Tell Admiral Harper that the old guard isn't just awake. We're making sure we never sleep again. The Phoenix Legacy and its sister ships held their position at the edge of the galaxy, no longer hidden, no longer forgotten. Warships older than entire empires, now serving as guardians for a future that belonged to everyone. The age of secrets was over. The age of unity had begun, and whatever came from the darkness beyond, the galaxy would face it together.